Hi, my name's Senga. I'm a landscape architect, but today I'm here just outside of Nice, France, in a little peninsula called Cape de Ferrat, where all the rich and famous come to play, or whether they're staying here while they're attending the Cannes Film Festival, like the Angelina Jolies, or come to live, like the late Baroness Beatrice of the famous Rothchild family. And this is her estate, which was built back in the early 1900s. You can see the chateau that she herself designed in the Italianate style. And part of this property is a series of gardens, all set within 7 acres of property. And these gardens were all themed, of which this is the first one, which is what we call the French garden. So the French garden starts off on a hillside with waterfalls, comes down into the central canal here that you can see, and every so often there's water jets that will turn on with music, and typical of French gardens was exuberance, lots of frothy water, and as you can see, a very strict symmetry of the water feature, of the pathways, and the very colorful flowers that flanked either side of the water feature as well. In essence, it became a focal point for the chateau beyond. The centerpiece of that building was the major stateroom, where all the guests would come out into the gardens and have their dinners or teas or whatever. So let's take a look and check out and see what the other gardens that the Baroness created on her estate. And here we are, starting our tour in what we call the Temple of Love, of which this lovely lady is in the center of the temple. It's very much a Greek or Roman influenced structure, with its semicircular roof and series of colonnades. And this temple sits at the top of a series of waterfalls, which we're going to see in just a minute. I'm standing here at the gates of what we call the Spanish Garden, or what was built as a Spanish garden, one in a series. And as you can see, we have the Moorish influences from Spain, probably influenced by such gardens as Alhambra and Granada. And we'll take a look, a peek around the side here to look at another common garden technique, and it was the use of the grottos. So, we'll just come back in here. You can hear the running water. Grottos are very common in Italy and France, even though this is a Moorish influenced garden. We do have vestiges of these sort of grotto influences from other countries. Then we'll walk down this pathway. You can see, again, the influences from Spain with the tiling on the ground here. And oftentimes, Moorish gardens were very, very straight and very symmetrical. And we'll take a look around the side, and you'll see the common water feature. And here's the main feature of the Spanish garden, influenced garden. You see here we have a series of water canals, the grottos at the very end, the running water, and we have steps down into the water feature. And again, we've got the very clean-cut tiling on the bottom or on your walkways, typical of a Moorish-style garden. And then we have pergolas overhead. In hot Spanish climates, these were often used, of course, for shading and sitting areas. And these gardens had many views over the Cape, over the nearby bay. This is Villa Fresh, or the Fresh Village, I believe, in what's spoken in English. This garden actually sits right on top of the Cape, so the gardens are actually, you can see on both sides of this island. So this villa was perched right on top of the Cape, which was probably the most important and expensive part of real estate on Cape de Ferrat. And here's the other side of the Cape. As you can see, panoramic views of the bay, and in the far distance is Italy. So in essence, this property is very close to the Italian border, hence the plethora of plant material that's able to grow here. Very, very mild climate. Perfect for a summer home, or if it was me, I'd be living here all year round. And here we're standing in what was called the Stone Garden, and this is where the Baroness collected various bas-reliefs and gargoyles from various areas around the world, probably predominantly Europe, as we can see. So this was really a display garden for such stoneworks as you see located on the garden walls. And this was all put in a setting of azaleas, and this is a Californian cinnamon tree right here. So this garden actually has a plethora of various species of plants from all over the world as well. And here we are standing in the Japanese garden portion. This is the entranceway. And here you can see the little water basin here, which was often used in tea ceremonies. And behind me is what we call the dry stone garden. That's that portion in white, very typical of a Japanese period of dry gardening done by the monks. And then a stone lantern on this edge would be a way to light up the pathways at nighttime. And at the end of this garden is the quintessential koi pond garden, and you can see them, and koi were used for good luck, as well as a common feature of ponds. And a little thing of note here is this dry mortared pebbles, which would emulate a beach. So everything was done in miniature here, so this would maybe even depict a mountain, these rocks in the water, mountains, waters, an ocean, and then a beach-lined shoreline. And now we're going to pass through the typical gateways that used to mark the entrance to these gardens. So this is a typical Japanese gateway. And here we are in the exotic garden, and as you can see, a lot of the plants here are of the dry desert or Mediterranean climate kind of plants. We've got succulents here, the big fleshy plants that hold a lot of water in dry climates. This would be typical of the France Mediterranean coastline, and all the way up to aloe veras, which is this in this family here, this plant, and to the cactuses, which are to the left and to the right and throughout this whole garden. So quite an interesting collection of plants, all grouped together so that they share the same soil, watering requirements, and of course an ornamental composition. And what Mediterranean garden would be complete without the rose garden? Complete with the hedge clippers that are being used by the gardeners here to clip the formal boxwood hedging which frames the rose garden. Roses grow very well in the Mediterranean simply because there's very little rain, lots of sunshine, and it's really good because, as many of you may know, black spot and white powder or powdery mildew is common in a wet weather climate. So the roses just thrive here.